Assalamu alaikum. This is my six-part video regarding the infamous verse, the woman beating in the Quran. Now, in my previous video, I have discussed the first group of verses which talks about the striking examples, and I've explained in that video what really actually happens when someone strikes an example, and you could refer back to that video for more details. Just maybe to recap, I could just say that striking an example, it's done for the purpose of isolating the issue is being discussed, and so just like as if we are imposing some kind of a wall around the issue, so to allow the other side to focus more. So another way to surround the issue, cut it off from the surrounding, from all the influences and the various factors that may prevent the person from clearly comprehending the issue. That's why we have the urge to strike an example for that purpose. And that's why the Quran strike examples, and it clearly states in the Quran that we strike examples for man so that they may remember. That is a Quranic verse. So I've covered that, and I think now I want to move on to the next group, which employs the term daraba, or the tri-letter word daraba. Now, as I explained my previous videos, that it is known in the language that any verb which have two dimensions, metaphorical dimension meaning and a physical meaning in the real world, no difference than the word that being discussed, daraba, or the tri-letter word daraba. So the first group I discussed about the striking examples is usually it's in the dimension of the metaphorical dimension, of course. So we strike example to isolate the issue, we focus more, hoping that we could comprehend the idea or the notion is being discussed. That is the purpose of employing the word in the case of example. Because we could easily use another word to present an example, like we could say, I'll give you example. But that's maybe among us as humans. But the Quran doesn't use an arbitrary word or just a word with no specific wisdom and meaning. So the word was used, daraba. And in this particular case, the first group of the examples, definitely it is metaphorical. So now the second group that is also in within the dimension of metaphorical is in the context of humiliation and exposing the stupidity of the other side, or the ignorance, I'd say. So in this particular group of verses, it clearly states that the purpose of these verses is to highlight the ignorance of these individuals who have been hearing the truth and rejecting it, and the consequences of that God says, will strike a humiliation upon them. Now, the verses involved in this, one, I'm just going to refer to one of them because it's really encapsulate the entire meaning of this context. That is in Al-Baqarah 61. Now, Al-Baqarah 61, it says, as a consequence of those rejecting the truth, God decides to, of course, of their own doings, to strike upon them humiliation. And that is the word used here, ضربت. ضربت, the same letter word of the verse in discussion, the beating of a female. So, what's really actually happening here? ضربت عليهم الذلة. Humiliation has been stricken upon them. Stricken upon them. This context is basically described to us the situation in which the humiliation had been imposed on such people, the ignorant people, as if that humiliation, it will envelop them, it will surround them, it will suffocate them. They would feel humiliated, as if that humiliation is like an envelope which would wrap them around. That's why the word ضربت, stricken around them, imposed around them, to isolate them from the rest of those who walk around with their head held up. These people have no chance to walk around with their head held up. They have been surrounded by a humiliation. Of course, as a result of their own doing, of their own choosing. God designed that law that when you reject the truth, the consequence of such behavior is basically you allow yourself to be surrounded or to be enveloped by humiliation, humiliated. And that's why the word was used, ضربت, stricken around them. Obviously, this is in the metaphorical sense, not in the physical sense. No one can say the humiliation is made of iron and you could grab it and you could hit somebody with it. If we want to resort to the physical meaning of it, which obviously is not physical, it's metaphorical. So the question is, why do we have to refer in this particular verse in Al-Baqarah 61 for the word ضرب or ضربت in a metaphorical sense, but we go and use the physical meaning in the case of the woman beating, so called the alleged woman beating. Now, these are two basically groups. There are other verses, of course, in which that the unbelievers, those who reject the truth, the wrongdoers, the evildoers, and so on, they suffer that humiliation in life, no matter how powerful they are, no matter how much they think they could smart out other people. They cannot smart out God, and then God has decreed that the humiliation will surround them, will be imposed around them, will separate them, will identify them, and will let the people know that these are people of humiliation. And they will lose the respect of society and their peers. Now, so Obviously, this particular verse in Al-Baqarah 61, the term daraba, the trilateral, which is derived from the trilateral word daraba as well. So it is very metaphorical, and it's a very similar scenario of the striking example, here striking the humiliation around the unbelievers or the ignorant. Same concept in reality when you strike an example, when you strike humiliation, as if you are imposing a wall around the issue. That's in the case of the examples, and you're imposing a humiliation to surround those who are ignorant or rejecting the truth. So you see the same kind of meaning, which is very much aligned with the meaning of the notion of the trilateral word, of the root word. But the meanings becomes different in according of the context. But no matter which context daraba falls in, the meaning of the notion of daraba, of the root word, is one, remains throughout. But the meaning changes according to the context. So there's a contextual meaning, and there is a notion meaning to the root word. Now, the third group the Quran lays down for us, in which employs the word or a derivative of the root word daraba. The third one I identify as in the context of movement in the land, to seek sustenance and seek a living, and to pursue our ambitions on this land. One of these verses, for example, I could just single out one. There are many other verses, but just one is sufficient. In Al-Baqarah 273, where it says, and as for those of the needy or the poor, those who are unable to move in the land, or unable to move in the land, or to seek sustenance, to seek livelihood for various reasons, their inability to get what they want. The word used in here, that unable to strike, if we're going to take the literal meaning, unable to strike on the land. Obviously, the strike here is not necessarily, I'd say, physical. We hit just for the purpose of hitting. It's just a reference to movement on the land, reference to a pursuant of something to get something. As I said, the pursuant of an ambition or a job or livelihood, that is usually called in the Quran ضربنا or ضربا في الأرض, strike the ground. When you strike the ground, is obviously this particular case, it could have two dimensions at the same time. It could have the physical and the metaphorical. The metaphorical meaning in this particular context, group number 3, is you pursue livelihood. That's something in your mind. You plan it, you design it, and you pursue it. That's not physical. Then when you move on the land, obviously movement requires the body moves, the legs would hit the ground also. So see, there's a physical and metaphorical aspect. So what is the meaning of the try or the root word in this particular case? What is it? It's actually there. Because when you hit the ground to pursue a movement, to pursue an ambition, to pursue a goal, you're actually laying down a roadmap for yourself. When you lay down a roadmap, you isolate the path from the hundreds of paths, which is maybe lost. But when you identify a path you want to take, that is actually, you are imposing a path upon yourself to take it so that you hope that you could reach your goal in life. And that is the meaning of the root word. It's always there. Whenever there's the word gharaba, to isolate, to impose, to pursue, something becomes more clear when you strike it. That's and there are many other verses. It talks about striking the land or move forward. You may not see it in the English translation, but if you really zoom in the Arabic, try to do your best. When they say moving in the land, pursuing and so on, that must be the word in Arabic, daraba. So here again, daraba is used, the same root word as it is in the infamous alleged woman beating in verse Surah Nisa, verse 34. That's a third context. So here again we see in the first group, that is strike an example. The second group is striking the humiliation around the unbelievers or those who reject the truth, evildoers, criminals, what have you. They will end up surrounded by humiliation in life, no doubt about it. Their kind of path, their evil path, as a consequence, God designed that path to end up in surrounding the self with the humiliation of society. There are many ways of a humiliation that could be presented. And the third one, as I said, is moving about on the land for a purpose. When we do that, we're actually imposing a path as a roadmap for our purpose and our ambitions. And the word used here, ضرب في الأرض, فاضربوا في الأرض, وإذا ضربتم في الأرض. It's all the word, same root word. And as I said, in this third context, it may contain or may encompass two dimensions of the tri-letter word, that is metaphorical as well as the physical, as I explained. I will end this video. I'll continue next video. I may take a couple more maybe groups of different contexts, so that at the end I will wrap it up to give a final meaning to the root word daraba in the verse under discussion, that is Surah Al-Nisa, verse 34. Until then, thank you. Wassalamu alaikum.